Let's go live to Sky News US contributor Michael Ware. Thanks so much for your time. Now, look, we talk about ambassadors being recalled and it all seems, kind of very juvenile, but this is in diplomatic language and in diplomatic speak, one of the toughest things they can do. It's a big sanction. But what do you read here between the lines, Michael Ware, when it comes to the relationship with the US and how France now views Australia?
Well, it's a great question you ask, because I would argue that right now, France and America are playing like big boys on the global stage, but Australia looks like becoming the surly kid in the playground, because it seems that Australia is at risk of playing a game of two-dimensional chess while everyone else is two-dimensional checkers, while everyone else is playing three-dimensional chess. So let's take President Biden and President Macron from France. Okay, so they had a 30-minute conversation today. President Biden initiated that call. Now, as a result, there was a joint statement from them both. Now, that tells you something. And as you flagged, they've now agreed to have an in-person meeting later next month. And President Biden, according to the readout, told the French president that perhaps this situation could have benefited from more open consultation. So as a result, France is sending its ambassador back to DC next week.
Wow. Now, so can I just pick you up on that? Explain this to me as well. So America is a superpower, right? So France probably can't afford to get the United States offside. Perhaps it's making the calculation that it can be angry at Australia for longer because it can get away with doing that. But do you really believe in a deal like this, with a nuclear submarine deal in which, secrecy was paramount because the United States has never given away those secrets except to the UK? Could we really have given France the heads up, or did this just need to be the collateral damage?
Yeah, no, we definitely could have handled this much better. I mean, President Biden has just acknowledged that in his call with the French president, and certainly Australia could have played it better. Yes, there were ways for us to communicate in a much more sophisticated way what was coming without having to really jeopardise the relationship. Because let's remember, France is not aggrieved with Australia so much. We're a middling power. They're really aggrieved with the Americans. And what they're really aggrieved about is the lack of communication. And that's precisely what we're not doing now. If we look at our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, is saying, well, I haven't rung the French and I'll do it in the right time. Well, that's like baby and bathwater, because as our Prime Minister says, I'll always do what's best for Australia. Well, of course. And we're going to serve Australia's national interests. Well, naturally, but France wouldn't expect anything otherwise. So why do we have to keep playing this game about I'm not calling you, you call me kind of thing?
I don't know.
When it seems completely unnecessary. And while the big boys are just taking this as a bump and move on with their relationship while we want to isolate ourselves from France.
Michael, absolutely.
Smart.
Well, while we're going on talking, I just need to remind our viewers that we are keeping a very close eye on Melbourne. A fourth day of protest expected, and we can see a big police presence on your screen once again. So we are keeping a very close eye on it. There we go. That's the middle of the CBD. Once again, we'll bring you more at the top of the hour. But Michael, before we let you go, there's a long history between the British and the French here. Throw in Boris Johnson with a little bit of get a grip. What did you think of that?
No, look, I love this. I'm so glad you brought this up. For me, this is the most fun part of this, snub fallout, because what is most fun is the way Paris has handled this with London. So, as we say, Paris recalls its ambassador from Washington and recalls its ambassador from Canberra. But it leaves its ambassador in London in place. Now, why? All right, well, we know the love-hate relationship across the channel between England, Great Britain and France. The Brits love getting one over on the French, and French have no love lost for the Brits. So why didn't they recall their ambassador to Great Britain? Well, it's because they said that we don't think Britain really had a significant role in any of this. In fact, the French officials said, we think the Brits were the fifth wheel in the carriage here. And they said, you know, we're long used to Britain's sort of constant opportunism. So they were saying, look, this tells us nothing about the Brits we don't already know. And in this deal, they were not the driving force by any means. So we'll just ignore them. And I don't think Boris Johnson likes being ignored.
No, I don't think Boris Johnson likes being ignored either, but it was expert gaslighting from the French, absolutely, and Boris Johnson enjoyed that quip all the same. Michael Ware, thanks so much for talking us through the diplomacy of it all. We really appreciate it. We'll see you soon.
No worries.